Long ago, this world was invaded by the Demon King, who unleashed countless monsters everywhere. The ones resisting them are the elite knights, warriors serving the leader. Through a sacred pact, they gain superhuman power and drive the monsters away. But a dangerous substance known as demon miasma remains in high concentration in some areas. Most who are contaminated die, while others turn into demons. Now, a demon with immense power appears. Its massive body shakes the ground with every thunderous step. Intense rays emanate from its eyes, and with savage strength, it destroys everything in its path, leaving countless corpses behind. Two knights reach the location and witness the aftermath. One, named Kirin, serves as the vice captain in the 9th branch, while the other speaks to him with concern. The sight of the red moon above them stirs their anxiety. The red moon is a frightening omen, a sign that a powerful demon is about to appear. As they watch its brilliance envelop the battlefield, they hear a heavy crashing sound from a nearby building. Kirin squints. Realizing the sound comes from inside, he advises caution, suggesting they return to the headquarters, but the moonlight falls heavily. When they explore, they find just a human baby left in front of them. The scene shocks Kirin, who mutters in disbelief, "It's a human child." 15 years later, the scene shifts to an orphanage. The children sit together in the cafeteria, enjoying their meal. Whispers circulate among them, reminding each other that they can only eat peacefully thanks to the holy knights, and they agree to eat with gratitude in their hearts. Among them, a boy named Lika wonders why his portion is so small, irritating another child, though Lika quietly ignores it. While the others laugh and eat in groups, Lika sits alone, eating in silence and watching them as his story begins here. Lika explains that when he was a baby, his village was attacked by a demon. He was the only survivor and was taken in by the holy knights to be raised in the orphanage. People find it suspicious that a child could survive such an attack, and the large birthmark on his face is often talked about as proof that he is a monster. After a while, a boy deliberately drops food at Lika's feet, mocking him that such scraps are enough for a monster. Lika bitterly reflects that he is constantly suspected of being one of them. Since every child in the orphanage has lost their family to demons, their hatred for him runs deep. The boy then calls over a smaller child, one who arrived just the day before, after watching his parents devoured by a demon pretending to be human. Filled with sorrow, the little one blames Lika, saying that his kind is responsible. When Lika denies it, the child cries, begging to be returned to his parents, pointing at him as a monster. Fueled by anger, the older boy starts hitting Lika, forcing him to apologize while the others watch in silence. Even later, as Lika cleans the orphanage floor, he thinks about how this cycle of bullying has continued for over a decade. The rules prohibit anyone from leaving the orphanage until reaching adulthood, except in the year they turn 15. Then, a priest from the Holy Knights arrives to conduct the selection test. Those who wish to become knights can try once in their lifetime. Lika clings to this hope. Only 5 days remain until the test, and he vows he will pass it and escape this place. After 5 days, the ceremony begins in a church before a statue of an angel. The priest addresses the candidates, calling for those who have turned 15 and wish to take the oath. Lika steps forward with the others, although the boy who bullies him mocks him, insisting that a monster like him cannot become a knight. The holy cups are placed in front of the statue. The priest explains the ritual. Each candidate must step forward and take an oath and vow to the leader, presenting what is most important to them. If the liquid inside the cup turns blue, they are unworthy. If it shines gold, they may drink and gain knightly power. But the oath must only be given once in a lifetime, so they must choose carefully. The first boy swears not to run from a monster again, recalling how his little sister was devoured before his eyes. The cups glimmer with gold. The priest confirms that his wish has reached the leader, empowering him with knightly strength. The boy drinks, and his eyes sparkle, the golden light flowing from his body as he marvels at the strength flowing within him. Lika watches in awe. The next candidate swears to roam freely upon leaving, treating everyone here as his family. The cups shine gold once more, granting him power. Another boy steps forward and takes the oath. Again, the liquid shines gold. Finally, it's Lika's turn. He swears to become a knight to protect people, but when he searches for something to offer, his mind goes blank. Lika realizes he has nothing to give, nothing he has ever owned. Desperate, Lika decides to offer anything of himself, anything at all. Suddenly, the liquid in the cups turns purple, shocking everyone present, even the priest, who proclaims he has never seen a color like that before. The ceremony ends abruptly, but Lika protests that his oath is incomplete. Before he can argue more, the boy he hates cuts off Lika's arm and raises the cup as proof, shouting that Lika is indeed a monster. The others join in, declaring they will kill Lika right here and now, but the priest intervenes, warning them not to misuse their newfound powers. Suddenly, chaos erupts as a demon descends into the ceremony hall. Explosions shake the building as people flee in terror. The priest shouts for evacuation, announcing that the holy knights must be summoned, but the demon advances mercilessly, killing indiscriminately. Lika lies on the ground, powerless. Terrified, he stares at the monster. His heart races as he fills with despair. Is this really how he will die? The boy with the new power steps forward, declaring that the leader's will commands him to fight, and he charges at the demon. Yet, despite his strength, he is defeated. Likewise, the other candidates granted power rush forward, determined to fight with the strength given to them. But one by one, they too are defeated, unable to withstand the overwhelming strength of the demon. Lika watches in horror. Fear consumes him as the demon strikes with its long, distorted tongue, wrapping around him to devour him alive. Panic sets in. Death is here. In desperation, he rushes toward the holy cups and drinks the liquid recklessly, determined to accept any fate rather than die here. Thus, the liquid inside him burns, but his severed arm quickly regenerates, and his body transforms. He reflects his essence in a broken mirror, taking on a form filled with superhuman strength, glowing with cold energy flooding every fiber of his being. Amazed yet excited, he feels his power surging. So, he stands to face the demon, his hands ablaze with fire. He cuts off the beast's long tongue and unleashes a torrent of power, tearing the demon into countless pieces until its body collapses in ruins. Exhausted, he falls to the ground. His body sparkles as his power fades, and as he breathes in disbelief, he notices his arm returning. Confusion and fear mix within him. What is this power? That strange energy? Before he can answer, a sword strikes the remains of the demon, shattering the corpse to prevent the spread of miasma. A knight stands with the weapon, apologizing for arriving late. The priest rushes forward, asking if Lika was the one who defeated the demon. Lika stares in astonishment as he steps forward, realizing he is in the presence of true holy knights. "You are something special, boy," he remarks. "Defeating that one is a remarkable achievement. That knight is none other than Captain Arthur." Lika's eyes widen as he notices the massive sword in Arthur's hand. He has never seen anything of this size. A magical sword shimmering with its heavy weight. The thought crosses his mind. This is the power of a knight. From behind, Kieran approaches angrily. "Captain Arthur, don't leave us behind." Arthur laughs lightly, replying that they are simply too slow. Lika thinks that if this person acknowledges him, perhaps he can finally leave the orphanage. Hope swells in his chest as he steps forward, calling out with a trembling determination that he has always admired the knights and longs to join them. But before Arthur can respond, another boy from the orphanage shouts from behind, demanding that the captain kill the monster. Arthur narrows his eyes at the boy, his tone sharp as he tells him that such words are a dangerous way to speak to a friend. But inside, Arthur studies Lika closely. This boy is the sole survivor from that destroyed village and what he has just witnessed. His transformation without an oath and his control over unnatural power cannot belong to an ordinary human. Lika begins to defend himself, but the boy attacks him in anger. Arthur moves quickly, blocking the blow and striking the boy back. The boy collapses, begging for forgiveness. Then Arthur turns to Lika, asking what he meant when he said he never took an oath. Lika explains hesitantly that he was about to state his oath when the demon appeared, but instead gained power after drinking from the holy cup. He posits that this must be the power of a knight without completing the oath. Arthur frowns in disbelief, saying that such a thing must be impossible, asking to know what Lika offered and to whom he swore. As Arthur examines closely, his eyes catch an unusual glimmer in Lika. Lika insists once again that he never took any oath at all, but Arthur, intrigued, declares that he must see his power firsthand. He orders him to show it. Lika hesitates, confused, admitting that he doesn't know how to summon it since it happened on its own before. Arthur's frustration mounts, and he decides to force him to do it. In a swift motion, he grabs him and thrusts him powerfully into the air, lifting his body off the ground. Lika flies helplessly as the earth recedes beneath his feet. Arthur coldly calls out that he must show his power now, or he will fall to his death. Kieran below tightens his gauntlets, describing Arthur as a demon for his disrespect. But Arthur looks up at the blue sky as if waiting for proof. Lika feels panic. If he cannot transform now, he will break and die. But before he can act, a shadow looms above him, a colossal flying beast with massive wings and a hooked beak. Arthur looks up, immediately recognizing, this is bad, a sky-eating bird. He had forgotten that this was their home. Kieran freezes, warning that this isn't a moment for calm. Above them, the beast swallows Lika whole, The two knights watch as the creature's wings flap heavily, rising into the sky with its prey. Kieran activates his power immediately, ready to save him, but Arthur stops him. With narrowed eyes, he states that this is their opportunity to see the boy's true strength. Kieran stares at him, realizing that this is why they called him a demon. Inside the belly of the bird, Lika struggles against the suffocating darkness. The acidity burns the air, and sharp scales and pulsing nerves surround him. The smells and heat press against him as he realizes the truth. He has been eaten alive. Fear grips him as he remembers the many children that demons have swallowed before. The orphanage and the holy knights are the worst. He bitterly whispers that dying this way is much worse. In despair, his body trembles and begins to transform again. His powers awaken, coursing through his veins as a low moan escapes him while his form shifts into the depths of the beast. Outside, Arthur and Kieran stand silently waiting. Finally, Kieran expresses his frustration, asking why she is so reckless. Arthur coldly replies that she just wants to know the true extent of Lika's power and whether he is strong enough to defeat a demon of great strength. Whether this power is useful to them or not, things need to be clarified. Suddenly, the bird convulses, its belly tears open, and Lika bursts forth in a blaze of supernatural power, crashing to the ground. Kieran immediately rushes forward towards Lika, bending down beside him to ensure he is unhurt. Meanwhile, Arthur remains focused on the fact that defeating such a beast alone indicates that Lika must be at least at the level of vice captain. Her eyes harden with determination. 10 years ago, this boy was the infant that Kieran rescued despite everyone's refusal. Now he has grown, carrying power that deserves attention. Kieran looks away, conflicting feelings overwhelming him. Perhaps it would have been better if Lika had died back then. He thinks of his secret, but Arthur shakes her head. This child must be taken with them. His unknown power must remain under their supervision, because the world cannot afford to let such power roam unchecked. Kieran remembers that humanity has little time left. In such a world, they cannot afford to abandon any potential allies. Chariots fly in the sky, driven by powerful winged horses. Inside one, Lika is sleeping, his body finally at rest after the chaos of celebration. Suddenly, he wakes up and sees Arthur sitting near him, her sharp eyes fixed on him. "Tell me you're awake," Arthur says coldly. Lika quickly sits up, confused, and apologizes before asking where he is. Turning to the window, he gasps in astonishment as he realizes that the chariot itself is flying through the sky. Arthur explains that they are on a tight schedule, so they left before he woke up. She adds that she is sorry Lika didn't have the chance to say goodbye to the facility. Lika scoffs, "Goodbye to the facility," then hopes this means he is officially part of the Knight system. Arthur confirms this, telling him that from this day forward, he is under their care. Stunned, Lika asks if that means under her care. Arthur replies that his presence is an unprecedented occurrence even for them, and whether they can trust him will depend on his actions from now on. Arthur extends her hand, and Lika shakes it, though in his heart he thinks that leaving the facility is good enough for him. Kieran, sitting across from them, speaks seriously. He explains that the orphanage building was severely damaged in the recent incident, and it has been decided to demolish it entirely. The staff and children will be divided and sent to other shelters. Most of those who had just sworn oaths are dead, Kieran adds sadly. He asks Lika if there is anyone he wants to say goodbye to. Lika can only recall bitter memories of the orphanage and shakes his head. No, not really. Lika changes the subject, asking where they are going. Kieran replies that they are going to the Knight's headquarters in the holy capital of Ha. He points to the window and tells Lika to look, and as Lika gazes at the glimmering city below the horizon, he sees countless knights and trainees like him stationed there. Because in this age, disasters from the Age of Legends can happen at any moment. The Age of Legends? Lika asks curiously. Arthur leans forward, pointing out the window towards the very sky. There, jagged cracks stretch across the heavens, with an unnatural light. Arthur explains that long ago, a rift opened in the sky, casting demonic matter and monsters into the world. They were led by the Demon King from another world, a greedy king who made demons his soldiers. Through them, he harmed the earth, spreading demonic ruin and humiliating creation. Therefore, the knights of that age pushed him back into the abyss, sealing the celestial demons to the north, south, east, and west of the continent. However, the habitable lands for humanity have significantly shrunk due to that conflict. Arthur admits that even now, they don't fully understand the matter. But what they do know is one thing. The rift widens every year, and the knights cannot stand against it. Arthur leans closer to Lika, her gaze serious. She says, "I have high hopes for your power." Lika stiffens, shocked. "High hopes for me?" he asks. Arthur holds his chin slightly, studying his eyes. She remembers the light that burns within him when he transforms, his sword of fire, explosive, and the regeneration of his severed arm. Such powers she has never encountered before deeply intrigue her, and Arthur admits that she still does not know what he has given in return for his oath. But now, she wants to use that power alongside them for the sake of the people. Laika nods eagerly in agreement. At that moment, Arthur opens the chariot door. Without warning, she throws him into the open air. His body drops, but instead of crashing to the ground, he descends gently. His body feels strangely resilient. He rises to his feet, marveling aloud that he does not feel pain, and his power, which he possesses now, is unknown to him. From above, Arthur watches calmly, explaining that anyone who forms oaths gains two forms of power. One is their unique ability, like her sword, or Laika's transformation. The other is protection, a gift that greatly enhances physical ability beyond normal limits. Being a knight is not only about killing monsters, she adds, stating that their job also includes cleansing the world of filth. She points downward, saying that cleaning up this garbage down there is your first task. When you are done, head into the city, and don't lose your way. Laika frowns, confused, until he hears footsteps. From among the trees, several men appear bandits. One mutters that the sky chariot has already departed, and wonders who this boy is wandering alone in the woods. Another sneers, deciding he must be an abandoned child, or an orphan whose parents were killed by demons. It doesn't matter, one says, as long as he can be sold, pointing at Laika. His thoughts freeze as he notices the children behind the bandits, their hands bound, their faces pale with fear. Laika tries to intervene to save the children, but one of the men roughly grabs one of the little captives, warning Laika to stay back if he doesn't want the boy to get hurt, indicating that the child's fate depends on where he is sold. But Laika stares at the kids, memories of his own stolen childhood coming back to him. A fire ignites within him. As one of the bandits screams at him to move, Laika steps forward instead, his voice sharp. "Release those children, you scum." He remembers Arthur's words. "This is my first duty as a knight, and I will take care of it here and now." The bandits turn their eyes on Laika, their leader sneering. "Who is this boy? Is he with the knights too?" He mocks, drawing his sword and continuing, "It doesn't matter. He's in our territory. That makes no difference." And they charge at Laika, their weapons glinting. But before they can strike, Laika vanishes from their sight. In the next moment, he appears next to the kidnapped children. He crouches low, speaking gently to them, telling them to stay quiet as the bandits stumble back in shock. "How did he suddenly disappear?" one of them asks foolishly. They attack again, wildly, and again, Laika disappears and appears elsewhere. Their eyes go wild until one of them spots him. There, two of them growl, raising their bows. Arrows shoot through the air, followed by the violent cry, "Die!" But before the arrows reach him, it seems that a tremendous power ignites Laika's body. Flames erupt and coalesce from his skin, his form shifting as the fire swirls around him. His eyes glow with an unnatural light. Laika mutters firmly, "I'll finish this quickly." The ground shakes beneath his feet. The earth cracks as his powers surge outward. The bandits freeze, terror in their eyes. "This man, he's a monster," one of them shouts. Suddenly, one grabs a child and presses his sword against the boy's neck. "Don't move," he threatens. "One step closer, and I'll cut his throat." Blood drips onto the child's skin as the sword cuts deep. Laika freezes, his fists clenched. He lowers his weapon, casting his sword to the ground, and slowly raises his hands. "I won't come any closer," he says, his voice tense. "Just let the children go." The bandit smiles. "We won't set them free. These children are valuable commodities. Their parents and families are dead. They were slaughtered by demons. They would have ended up as food anyway. At least, we give them a use. If they end up with some rich fool, it's better than nothing." The bandit's words fall with malice, but before he can continue, the ground erupts. Flames explode violently beneath Laika's feet, surging through the soil like a living wave. The fire encircles both the thief and the child, burning the sword from his grip and throwing it to the ground. It slices his neck in a flash of burning light. He falls immediately. Laika watches his hands, astonished. "I told him I wouldn't get closer, but this power acted on its own. I didn't expect to produce something like this." He takes a deep breath, realizing that the knight's power is more useful than he thought. He steps towards the children, bending before them. They tremble, their small bodies stiff with fear, and he softens his voice, trying to soothe them, but exhaustion overwhelms him like a wave. His vision clouds, and his power fades. He collapses onto the ground, unconscious at their feet. The children cry, shaking him desperately. Hours later, at the knight's headquarters, Kirin stands stunned as he pulls Laika and the children through the gates. "There you are. Wait, what is all this? Kieran asks. The children explain that Laika saved them, but after entering the city, he lost consciousness. Kieran hoists Laika over his shoulder with a sigh, saying it is unacceptable to cause trouble for the people he saved. This is one mark against you. So what should we do with you? From inside the hall ahead of them, golden light spills outward, and a group of powerful figures steps to the forefront. Fran, the head of the second branch, approaches with a gentle smile. She looks at Laika's sleeping face, saying, "He looks so wonderful like this. I'll give him a very weak mark." Kenneth, the vice president, crosses his arms. "Look at our leader. He looks like a fool while asleep." To Grivet, the head of the fourth branch, who mocks, "Consuming yourself over just a cleanup job is utterly ridiculous." To Jack, the head of the sixth branch, who laughs and shakes his head. "People said he was a monster and acted like a killer. This is really disappointing. Well, let's wait and see what he does from here." Finally, Arthur, the leader of the night team, steps forward. Her voice carries authority as she addresses everyone, saying, "For the evaluation of a novice who has completed his first mission, you are all very harsh. His missions will continue as planned. Well, we will wait to see greater growth from him next time." All as was considered in the backed in the card. The next morning at the night rank headquarters, breakfast is served. A long table is covered with plates of food, far more than Laika has ever seen in his life. His eyes widen with excitement when he realizes that all of it is for him, and he eats eagerly. Fran, the head of the second branch, offers him a cup and then moves on to serve the others. Laika feels at ease, thinking about how different this place is. No beatings, no scraps to eat, just good food and tranquility. The new uniform on his shoulders makes him even more certain that he is finally free from the orphanage. This moment of comfort is abruptly interrupted when Kenneth, the vice leader of the second branch, suddenly appears. He gives Laika a sharp look, calling him Ryuka, the new name he has been given at the Knight's headquarters. Impatiently, Kenneth orders him to follow, his tone harsh and dismissive. Laika is annoyed by the sudden intrusion, wondering about his behavior, only to discover that this man is nothing more than the vice commander. Kenneth shows little interest in small talk. His intention is clear. He wants to see if Laika is useless trash or something valuable. Fran, who was helping with the meal, is also summoned. She sets her plate aside and follows with a cheerful remark, while Kenneth urges her to hurry. The three of them head towards the forest, where the atmosphere shifts from calm to tense. Fran reminds Laika that the goal of today's mission is simple. Everyone must return without injuries. Though Laika struggles in his mind to reconcile her gentle demeanor with being a high-ranking commander, Kenneth explains the situation. This morning, a sighting of a monster was reported on the outskirts of the royal capital. Although the damage so far has been minimal, a swift response is necessary, which is why Kenneth and Fran were dispatched. Fran adds that this is also an opportunity to evaluate Laika, since his place in the night team is still uncertain. She makes it clear that this mission is being used as an assessment, so the idea of losing this new life frightens Laika. However, when Fran places her hand on his head and tells him she has high hopes, Ryuka feels a surge of determination. He boasts that fighting monsters will be easy because thanks to his new strength, he is strong enough to eliminate them. Kenneth quickly embarrasses him, reminding him that the children had to carry him to the Knight headquarters after his last mission. Laika responds angrily, wondering about Kenneth's superiority, even though they seem to be around the same age. Kenneth coldly responds that many recruits in the Knight team die within 6 months, killed by monsters, or crushed by the burden of their oaths, implicitly indicating that Ryuka has no right to stand among them because he has not completed his oath and pledge. Fran tries to ease the tension, explaining that Kenneth's harsh words come from the nature of his oath, which prevents him from speaking softly. Yet, Laika can't help but ask if Kenneth truly believes he looks like a fool. The vice commander ignores the question, making it clear that Ryuka has not sacrificed anything to gain his power. This accusation hits hard, but Ryuka does not deny it. Flames begin to radiate from his body during the transformation, declaring through his actions that even without an oath, he is ready to give everything he has to stay in the night team. The thought of returning to the orphanage fuels his determination. He silently vows to withstand any trial, endure any pain, and use his powers to secure his place. Energy dances in the air as Kenneth unleashes his power as well, the pressure between them sharp and fluctuating, both caught in a silent contest of will, standing in full transformation. Fran watches them, impressed by their energy, but reminds them that it must be directed toward the mission. As flames rise around them, they are interrupted by the sound of rustling. Up in the trees, dozens of monkey-like monsters take a pouncing stance on the branches, their eyes glowing with malice. The forest suddenly fills with vibrancy, and the threat of real battle begins. Then, out of nowhere, one drops down in front of the three, crashing heavily to the ground. Ryuka barely avoids the monster's strike. Surprised by how close it was, Kenneth reacts immediately, killing the creature, and the monster's body bursts, spilling a strange purple liquid upon crashing into a nearby tree trunk. The wood begins to rot and collapse, leaving Ryuka stunned at the sight. Fran warns him urgently about the monster's tails, spikes filled with fast-acting poison that could kill on contact. Even as she speaks, more creatures flow from the treetops, surrounding them from every direction. Ryuka advances, flames igniting around him as he prepares to attack. But Fran moves faster, slicing down the enemy with her sword before it can move. Ryuka protests, but she smiles softly, determined that the rest of the battle will be his responsibility as she moves on to search for the devil that must be leading the monsters. As she disappears into the depths of the forest, the battle ignites around them. Kenneth raises his weapon, his mechanism glowing with the special arts of the knights, each shot annihilating a monster with devastating precision. Ryuka also jumps into the fray. Although one monster poses a threat to him, it is swiftly dispatched by Kenneth, who coldly reminds Ryuka that he is nothing but a hindrance if he considers himself a knight to be treated like a game. That insult ignites something within him. Another monster lunges, and Ryuka responds by drawing his blazing sword, smoothly cleaving it in one motion, silently pledging not to lose his place in the knight team. Kenneth continues his relentless assault, firing volley after volley of dazzling bullets. His words are sharp as he challenges Ryuka to prove his resolve through actions, not pride. The intensity in the air grows with the roar of more monsters as they leap around them from all sides. Kenneth stands firm, unyielding, cutting through wave after wave as if he were tireless, while Ryuka finds himself overwhelmed by the numbers. Surrounded by so many enemies, he feels insulted as he looks to Kenneth, who is submerged in killing monsters but remains composed. The difference between them becomes painfully clear. Gunfire against fire, precision against raw energy. Two more monsters approach, forcing Ryuka to throw his sword, the blades whirling through their bodies in an explosion of flames. But even as he fights, doubt creeps in more and more that his flames are exhausting, his strength faster, and exhaustion threatens to break him once again as it did before. Kenneth scoffs, without hesitation, at his waning incapacity, telling him to either fight properly or get out of the way. For the Vice Commander's moves are unwavering. He does not strain. His aura does not weaken. Angry, Ryuka demands to know how he can fight endlessly without exhausting his energy. Kenneth replies simply and coldly. Every shot is summoned through his arts. Each bullet is created by directing energy straight into his weapon. Ryuka realizes with admiration that Kenneth's power works entirely differently from his own. It's efficient and controlled. Unlike his burning, continual, draining flames, he knows that prolonging the battle will only end with his defeat. Kenneth notices his hesitation, ready to declare him unfit for the system, but something unexpected happens. Ryuka's flames surge violently, his body surrounded by flames burning brighter than ever. He expands in form, his muscles defined with superhuman strength, and beneath his feet, the ground ignites. He loses control, not caring for efficiency and mana costs, unleashing everything in a single devastating blow. The mountains tremble as a waterfall of fire erupts outward, consuming the monsters in one catastrophic explosion. Their screams echo as countless monster bodies fall. The treetops ignite with a crimson light. Kenneth pauses, frozen for the first time, his eyes narrowing at the sheer destructive power displayed by Ryuka. The energy fades as quickly as it appeared. Ryuka collapses to the ground, completely exhausted, unable to lift a finger. He breathes hard as he looks up, smiling faintly, silently determined that his display of power proves he is worthy of recognition. But Kenneth remains frozen. His gaze shifts to the battlefield where something strange begins to happen. From the carcasses, threads like burning strings emerge, sinking deep into the ground. His instincts scream in warning. The earth shakes, and the soil cracks as if alive. Kenneth yells a warning as the forest's ground erupts. The earth bursts upward, and from its depths emerges a massive monster dwarfing everything before it. Its gigantic form blocks the light, and the real battle has just begun. Ryuka, despite being drained of his powers, is forced to revive his blazing sword and cut at the monster, trailing waves of flames with his blade. However, the beast is so massive that his attacks scatter uselessly against its skin. In a reckless rush, he jumps forward, just about to fall into its open mouth. But Kenneth grabs him at the last moment, pulling him back. Ryuka catches his breath, trembling as Kenneth identifies the monster for what it truly is, a demon. Ryuka realizes immediately that the horde of monsters was merely bait to lure them into this deadly confrontation. He is left drained, the surge of power leaving his body nearly empty. Before he can recover, the demon uses its massive tongue, wrapping both Ryuka and Kenneth in its crushing grip, until a bright light pierces the sky. Fran descends as support for them, her weapon shimmering as she advances directly toward the demon's mouth. In a single strike, she severs its enormous tongue, liberating the two trapped inside. She lands with pinpoint accuracy as the colossal monster crashes into pieces. Standing in the pit left by the demon's demise, she quietly observes the remains, her tone indifferent as she points out that the smaller monsters were handled quite well at least. Her eyes shine with a smile as she watches the two, teasing them that they seemed closer than expected. Kenneth and Ryuka both freeze at her words, but she laughs a little before finally freeing them from the torn flesh. Ryuka watches, tongue-tied in silence, astonished to see someone confront a monster of that size without hesitation, not even showing fatigue, making him realize just how out of reach Fran truly is. As he watches her, she puts her hands together, bowing her head briefly as if in prayer. When he asks why, she explains that demons are not born creatures, but once humans, twisted and consumed by excess magical energy. For her, each kill is followed by a prayer, a moment of respect for those who were simply unlucky. Ryuka nods quietly, but Kenneth narrows his eyes. For him, these events raise disturbing doubts. Powerful demons this close to the capital seem far too unnatural, and he expresses his suspicions that something unnatural is happening here. Before they can think further, a new presence appears. The air becomes thick and suffocating. Fran freezes, her gaze sharpening as she orders Ryuka and Kenneth to flee. From the shadows, something massive approaches, larger than the demon they just killed. Kenneth stumbles as his energy wanes, his body refusing to move. From the darkness, the figure takes shape, towering high, humanoid, yet monstrous. The greater demon steps forward, its voice deep and resonant. It speaks with a twisted pride, referring to the slain demon as its child, mocking humans for their audacity to destroy its creation. Fran raises her weapon once more, demanding to know his identity, but before she can get closer, the creature lifts a single finger. The ground trembles violently, sending them all crashing to the ground, as if they had experienced an earthquake. Ryuka feels a wave of terror. The immense power radiating from this being is beyond anything he has ever faced before. Even Fran, who seemed invincible, suddenly appears powerless in comparison, and Kenneth defiantly fires his shot. Sparks of magical energy tear through the air, but the greater demon moves his finger again. A surge of energy flows out, hitting Kenneth's arm and causing him to sway, while the demon laughs at his defiance, calling him a foolish child. Black flames erupt around the demon, burning the air created from nothingness as it declares its intent to reclaim what was lost. With terrifying ease, it summons the severed remains of its lost child. Threads of energy pull the scattered pieces together until the creature is reformed, stronger, uglier, its aura more lethal than before. Ryuka stares, horrified, his mind barely able to grasp what he is witnessing. The greater demon finishes its work, then orders the reformed beast to attack. The creature obeys without hesitation, grabbing Fran with its massive hand and lifting her into the air. She struggles against its crushing grip, but it holds her tightly, her body dangling helplessly. Ryuka's heart races as he watches, his mind returning to her earlier words. The promise that everyone would return home safely, her gentle encouragement that she had high hopes for him, and seeing her trapped and in pain, tears something inside him apart. Ryuka screams in despair, but the greater demon merely turns its gaze toward him. Lights and flames explode from its eyes and body, emanating like hellfire. The ground shakes beneath his feet as it unleashes its fury. Waves of burning energy crash forward, directed straight at Ryuka, and a blazing fireball forms in the palm of his hand before he hurls it forward. The ball strikes the demon holding Fran, piercing through its savage flesh and forcing it to release her. Fran falls free, terrified but relieved, while Ryuka's body swells with uncontrolled energy. His body glows, his form expanding, flames streaming from his eyes and even from his forehead, announcing his transformation into a colossal form of pure power. But the pressure is too great to bear. His strength crumbles, and he falls to the ground. The greater demon looms above him, its gaze sharp, showing more interest than anger. It remarks sarcastically that Ryuka is still able to move under this crushing weight, then effortlessly lifts him into the air with a wave of its hand. Holding him suspended, the demon observes closely, its eye narrowing, as if it has discovered something strange. It whispers that the fire Ryuka carries is not of this world, then delves deeper, uncovering a strange pact etched into his soul. With a monstrous laugh, its interest is piqued. Ryuka has formed a pact with a king not of this existence, and Ryuka comes back to life. His body ignites once more. Flames burst from his skin in a torrent. With a sudden defiance, he channels everything into a single destructive attack. The flames incinerate the greater demon, tearing apart its massive body. The monster's form explodes into countless burning shards, collapsing around them like debris. Ryuka, utterly spent, collapses heavily to the ground. Kenneth and Fran stare in shock at the devastation of the battle. Kenneth asks in disbelief if the monster has truly been killed. But Fran's sharp eyes notice something strange among the scattered remains. The body looks too empty, too unreal. She realizes with horror that what they destroyed was merely a puppet controlled from afar. She kneels beside Ryuka, and Kenneth tries to wake him while Fran reassures him that all that happened was that he fainted, but her gaze stays fixed on the scattered pieces of flesh, anxiety gnawing at her. The idea that someone could create demons with such immense power is terrifying. Her thoughts spin around a single possibility. Could this have been the work of the legendary spellcaster Lord Tempest, who stays far from the battlefield? Inside the city, there's a quiet room telling a different story. A small girl enters and calls out to someone named Ashi, a man lying on a sofa with a book sprawled across his face. He apologizes kindly as he sits up, admitting that he was dreaming, though the dream left his heart strangely unsettled. The girl teases him for being such a clumsy adult, easily swayed by banter. With a flick of his finger, he makes tea pour into a cup, effortlessly wielding his magic. She reprimands him for using his gift carelessly, but he just smiles, staring at the open sky. The sky above him cracks, and with a calm anticipation, he comments that something exciting is about to happen. Meanwhile, in the forest again, Kenneth carries Ryuka on his shoulders, encouraging him to hold on as they approach the royal capital. Ryuka regains consciousness slightly, the greater demon's words echoing in his mind. The terrifying claim that he is something unimaginable, having formed a pact with a ruler not of this world. In the royal capital, Ryuka lies unconscious in the center of an underground chamber of the Knights organization, while leaders and their deputies stand in a circle around him. The air is thick with unease. The observing leader studies the hero closely and breaks the silence, acknowledging that this boy has indeed formed a contract with a ruler from another realm. The leader of the fourth branch, Griff, quickly expresses concern, pointing out that if this is true, such a bond threatens the foundation of the organization. Then the sixth vice captain, Jack, offers a conflicting perspective. He points out that despite the danger, Ryuka produced a tremendous firepower in the last battle, suggesting that such strength could be of great benefit to the organization. The ninth captain, Sayer, follows suit with cautious agreement, reminding others that Ryuka has already proven himself in battle. Accepting the words of an unknown man without confirmation would be reckless. But Deputy Captain Gavin interrupts the discourse, warning that the possibility of intervention from the spellcaster cannot be ignored. He insists that the risk is far too great, and that this organization has no room for unreliable elements. Such figures only bring chaos. The captain locks eyes with him and turns to Fran, asking for her testimony as she witnessed everything firsthand. Fran steps forward and explains that both she and Kenneth were unable to move during the confrontation. The only one able to face the enemy was Ryuka, and without him, they all would have been dead. However, she admits uncertainty about whether Ryuka himself can fully control the power he wields. Gavin seizes upon her hesitation, adding that every time Ryuka uses his power, he collapses from exhaustion. Power without endurance is no power at all. The captain listens silently, then summarizes that the issue is not Ryuka's strength, but rather his ability to control that power and prove he belongs in the organization. Turning to Gavin, the captain asks what it would take to convince him. Gavin responds after a moment's pause, coldly suggesting the torchbearer's trial. The statement sends a wave of shock through the room. Testing the boy so early, with such a ruthless challenge, seems excessive. Nevertheless, the decision has been made. The captain orders Jack to take responsibility for healing Ryuka, directing him to ensure the boy is fully recovered before the trial. Thus, amidst his healing, Ryuka experiences whispers echoing in his mind. Discordant words of contempt mock his pact, call him disgusting, questioning what he truly is. The voices grow louder until he suddenly awakens, finding himself in a quiet room. Deputy Captain Kenneth sits near him, relieved he has awakened. Kenneth chides him slightly, pointing out that healing techniques have already been used on him, and asks how long he intends to sleep. He assures Ryuka that the immediate danger has passed. Ryuka looks at him in surprise, asking why he seems so concerned. Kenneth answers without hesitation. It was Ryuka who saved them, and of course, he was worried about him. A rare smile glimmers on Ryuka's face, teasing that Kenneth is bad at lying. Kenneth dismisses the matter with a grumble, but ultimately thanks him. The door opens, and branch leader Seer enters, apologizing for disturbing Ryuka's rest. He informs him that a decision has been made regarding his future. Ryuka asks, confused, what that means. Seer explains that he has been chosen to undergo the torchbearer's trial. Kenneth reacts angrily, deeming the decision reckless. Ryuka, still in shock, asks what the trial entails. Kenneth stands in his way, objecting that the boy is just a newcomer, having only just gained magical powers, and is unprepared for such a trial. He warns that the test is designed for the chosen elite of knights, those with extensive experience and proven achievements. Normally, even attempting it requires a recommendation from several branch leaders. Sending Ryuka now is no different from sentencing him to death. Chase Aaron solemnly adds that Kenneth speaks the truth. The trial is harsh for Ryuka, and only a few succeed. Many go mad, while others perish. Taking it lightly is an invitation to death. Ryuka sits on his bed, his expression torn between anxiety and determination. He admits that he doesn't fully understand the complexities, but this is the only remaining place for him, and therefore he will risk everything he has, even his life. 5 days later, the day of the trial arrives. At the entrance of a vast cave, Saren stands with Ryuka. He explains that the trial consists of 2 parts. First, Ryuka must stay inside the cave for 3 days. Then he presents him with something simple, a candle. Ryuka looks confused. A candle, he asks. Saren commands him to channel his power into it. When Ryuka holds it, he feels intense heat and is guided by pain. Saren reveals the true nature of the trial. Ryuka must ensure the flame of the candle does not go out for 3 days. He must protect it at all costs, because its light will attract the monsters. With that warning, he leaves the boy to his fate. Thus, the torchbearer's trial begins. Ryuka enters the cave, holding the fragile candle in his hand. The darkness inside is suffocating, pierced only by the faint flicker of the fire. Water drips at a regular rhythm from invisible cracks above, and the atmosphere is heavy and hard to breathe. He immediately feels the density of magical energy. He realizes this is what the captain meant. Seer's instructions echo in his mind. This cave contains an extraordinary concentration of magic energy, even for the northern areas where it is already abundant. Because of that, monsters thrive here in greater numbers than anywhere else. His trial has 2 parts. First, to survive in these conditions for 3 days, and second, to protect the candle flame from extinguishing. Movement in the shadows commands his attention. A monster appears, stumbling toward him, and his mind repeats Karen's warning. He must not let the candle go out, and that is not negotiable. If it goes out or burns completely, he will fail. Ryuka gathers his strength and summons his sword, unleashing its flame in a swift strike. The creature is cut to pieces in an instant. His eyes glance back at the candle, seeing its flame growing dangerously larger, draining more of his power than he intended. Once again, Seer's teachings float in his mind. The candle feeds on his power as fuel. By reducing the output, like narrowing a water flow, he can regulate it, forcing himself to calm down. He gently blows and focuses until the flame settles into a steady glow. The cave becomes restless from all sides, crawling, fluttering, creeping. More monsters approach, hideous shapes filling the tunnels. The captain's words ring again in his head. The bells in the cave will toll after 3 days. Only if the flame does not go out by then will he be recognized as an official member of the organization. Failure means death. Ryuka is already cornered. Ryuka speaks to himself. If he continues carefully, he slowly retreats. In the end, he will find himself trapped. This situation spurs a reckless decision. Instead of diminishing the flame, he funnels his strength into it, doubling it. The small candle ignites with light, illuminating the vast darkness of the cave. Every hidden monster slides toward him at once, their eyes reflecting the glow. Thus, with a violent surge of energy, Ryuka unleashes a devastating wave of fire, vaporizing the crowd in one massive assault. The cave walls shake with the force, and ash scatters across the damp ground. Outside, Kenneth and Siren, who are watching the trial from under the water's surface, gaze in shock. Kenneth whispers that the boy is trying to eliminate every monster in the cave at once, and then rest afterward. It's a method that defies the spirit of the trial itself. However, Siren, watching closely, can't help but smile, acknowledging the genius of such tactics. Nonetheless, he is engulfed in worry. Something feels wrong. He suddenly realizes the truth and whispers anxiously, "This is wrong. This is a presence that shouldn't exist here." Inside the cave, Ryuka steadies the candle, its flame still burning brightly. He acknowledges that he has taken down many monsters with his strike, and promises to keep the flame small from now on, saving his strength for the rest of the days. However, as the flicker intensifies, the ground shakes from the darkness in front of him, and a massive entity emerges. It is a giant multi-legged monster with many arms, each holding a sword. At that moment, Ryuka freezes, his eyes widening, the weight of its existence pressing down on him. The commander watching from afar instantly recognizes it with a sharp frown. There's no mistake. This is Persar. So, Ryuka tightens his grip on his sword as light flows from his body. The blade glimmers with energy channeled from the knight's power, a weapon specially designed to enslave monsters. The true trial is just beginning. Siran calls out to Gavan, his tone sharp. Gavin sits at his desk, and Siran accuses him of orchestrating this, turning an experimental weapon designed for fighting monsters into a test within the torch trial. Gavin coldly replies, denying responsibility. He insists that it was merely a test for the Persar model, indicating that the adjacent forest was simply convenient, and that the cave's location was a coincidence. Siran refuses to accept the excuse, pressing him further, but Gavan cuts the tension with cold certainty. He reminds him that the trial aims to test all difficulties and unfairness. If the boy can't handle it, it's his fault. There's no need for a candidate who can't endure such conditions. Siran sighs deeply, hiding his frustration. He has no choice but to acknowledge the truth in Gavin's words, and Fran enters the room, carrying a tray with a teapot and cups. Seeing the branch head himself stoop to the role of a servant draws a remark from Gavin, but she brushes it off, stating it's a simple hobby. When she asks him how much sugar he prefers, he replies that he doesn't take any sugar cubes, so she pours him tea without hesitation. She comments that he seems unusually in a good mood, to which he responds that he's not in a bad mood. In his view, the fewer worrying matters in the organization, the better. He glances at the mirror before him, its surface reflecting the events inside the cave where Ryuka's trial continues. Deep in the earth, the huge monster looms. Its single eye glimmers and unleashes a barrage of burning rays. Ryuka replies by forming a blazing ball in his hand and throwing it toward the creature, but the attack fails to cause any visible damage. The monster remains unscathed. Panic flashes across his face as he realizes the candle's flame has dangerously grown, consuming more of his energy. He warns himself to be cautious, but the monster attacks again, its eye exploding into violent streams of light. Ryuka narrowly dodges the attack. His body is tense, his thoughts are scattered. Using fire exhausts him quickly, and worse, the attacks may not even activate. He wonders what he can do. He continues to dodge the attacks until the ground beneath him collapses, and he falls into a deeper chamber in the cave. There, in the suffocating darkness, the monster stands above him, its many legs scraping against the stone, its many arms holding blades, and its massive eyes shimmering with deadly light. Ryuka studies the monster closely, eagerly searching for a weak point. He looks at the giant eye. The creature is still, its attention focused solely on him. As it moves forward, it unleashes a scorching beam toward his leg. When it retreats, another explosion follows from the back. Slowly, he understands. The monster feels every movement and shoots in response to them. The truth dawns on him. If it reacts to movement, then the eye itself must be the key. With a surge of determination, Ryuka focuses his strength and launches himself into the attack, his flame exploding as he thrusts his sword directly into the glowing eye. The weapon cuts deep, and the monster writhes violently. Ryuka strikes again and again, unleashing all his strength until the eye bursts and the body collapses, its many arms falling lifelessly to the ground. Nerves dangle from the destroyed weapon as Ryuka tears away the free limbs, flinging them aside, leaving the monster in scattered pieces across the cave floor. It's being watched through the mirror. Gavin freezes. His expression reveals a glimpse of concern at Ryuka's success. Meanwhile, Fran, on the other side, smiles with quiet pride. Her tone is light as she praises the boy's performance, noting that the weapon still needs refining, but Ryuka's use of his power is impressive. Gavin masks his concern by asking for sugar, and Fran agrees, smoothly stirring it into his tea. He drinks deeply, then empties it with a reminder that the branch head shouldn't waste his time aimlessly. She bows, acknowledging his words, and apologizes to leave him alone. Gavin looks back at the mirror. His voice drops to a cold whisper as he acknowledges what just happened. This victory was nothing more than a temporary security. The cave itself, with all its dangers, is far from finished, and it won't allow the boy to escape alive so easily. On the third day of the Torchkeeper's trial, Ryuka sits in the suffocating darkness, gripping the candle tightly in his hand. His breath is uneven, and his body shakes with exhaustion. The flame dances gently, nearly extinguished. He stares at it, mumbling to himself that the bell hasn't rung yet. Only a small part of the candle remains, and his personal strength is about to run out. At that moment, from the corner of his vision, he notices movement. At first, he doubts himself, but the truth becomes undeniable. The flesh of the slain monster is moving. His eyes widen as the scattered remains begin to crawl together, intertwining and weaving themselves into new forms. Different monsters emerge from the renewal, distorted and relentless. He realizes that the dense concentration of magical energy in the cave forces this unnatural birth, and despair begins to creep into his thoughts. Before he can be overcome by panic, the bell finally rings. The words of Commander Siren echo in his mind. As long as the candle remains lit until the bell tolls, the trial will end. He grits his teeth and tells himself he must escape, running with all his remaining strength. The candle's flame is so small that a single touch could extinguish it. However, behind him, the new monsters are chasing him in a wave. So, he pushes forward, battling for every breath, his back burning from a surprise attack. Pain spreads through his body, but he instructs himself to hold on just a bit longer. Finally, the cave exit appears on the horizon. As the monsters close in from all sides, he ducks, forcing his tired body to crawl through the exit. At last, he collapses outside, and the faint glow of the candle still burns in his hand. Commander Siren kneels beside him, lifting his body. He tells him, "Time's up." Ryuka, barely comprehending what is happening, moans in disbelief, whispering to himself whether it has really ended. Siren confirms it in a steady voice, silently observing that Ryuka has endured better than expected. Ryuka faints in his arms. The trial has finally concluded. When Ryuka opens his eyes again, he sits upright in a chair in the middle of a vast ceremonial room. The hall sparkles with sacred light, and around him are leaders, deputy leaders, and knights of all ranks. Confused, he mutters about the place. But Arthur, the leader of the Holy Order, explains with authority. It is the ceremony room where the rite of passage takes place. Through it, they reveal their oaths and weapons to affirm trust with the new trainee. One by one, the knights step forward. Terran, commander of the 9th Squad, announces that his oath is to never marry. Fran, commander of the 2nd Squad, steps forward and declares that her oath is to forgo food for life. Kenneth, deputy leader of the 2nd Squad, stands firm and announces that his oath is to never lie. Grift, commander of the 4th Squad, presents his oath by dedicating his arm. Jack, deputy leader of the 6th Squad, vows to remain a virgin for life. Togavan, deputy leader of the Holy Order, reveals his oath to not sleep and swears that his armor will never forgive betrayal against the Order. Finally, Arthur, the supreme commander, raises a shimmering sword filled with holy light. Before everyone, Arthur swears to forsake sex itself. The moment shifts to Ryuka. The commander calls him to reveal his arm and oath, a sign of trust before the holy organization. All eyes turn toward him with sharp anticipation. As he slowly rises from the chair, Ryuka transforms, his body expanding into a massive form of energy and strength. His voice shakes, but he holds the resolve as he acknowledges his truth. He doesn't truly know what this power is, or what the oath tying him to it is, but he promises to earn everyone's trust before him. He declares his determination to become stronger than anyone else, to ensure that no one around him gets hurt again, and to save others before they fall. The room falls silent, then faces beam acceptance. Many smile at his words, though the tension is still present. Arthur speaks seriously, holding the flaming sword high. The knight symbolizes life now before them, and Ryuka must continue to find strength as proof of trust. With this, they welcome him into the Holy Order of Knights. Then, a golden light erupts from Ryuka's body, filling the room with brilliance. But Gavin's cold voice cuts through the atmosphere. He protests to Arthur, questioning how someone who can't even formulate a proper oath is allowed into the organization. Arthur sharply reminds him that Gavin is the one who proposed the Torchkeeper's trial as a measure of competence. Ryuka risked his life without hesitation. He admitted to his uncertainty, yet he persevered. This alone, Arthur argues, is proof of his confidence. However, Gavin continues to warn that Ryuka's instability could endanger the sacred system itself. Still, Arthur silences him again, declaring that the closer Ryuka gets to death, the stronger he becomes, and that this power will one day be their greatest weapon. The scene shifts to a train, where the host announces that they are heading to the central western area, and the journey will take about 2 hours, encouraging everyone to relax and enjoy the ride until they arrive. There is a special carriage for the organization's knights, including Ryuka, Kenneth, and Captain Jack. Ryuka happily shares that he can hardly believe he is officially a knight of the organization now, and that his days of misery in the nursing home are over, along with the bullying from his peers. Life will be better and easier in the days to come. The hostess asks to serve some food to the knights on the train, and Ryuka requests food for himself as well. He then realizes he doesn't have the money to pay for it, to which the hostess replies that there is no need to pay, and that it is a special gift for him. Ryuka is delighted by this, and states that it's wonderful to be a knight in the organization. However, Jack interjects that he should not think he's receiving free food, as the knights pay for it with their lives. At that moment, Ryuka understands that this is why people respect knights, and why they are considered a great source of hope for the general public, and he begins to eat. Ryuka continues his conversation with Jack, mentioning that upon joining the organization, knights must act without hesitation. Jack laughs at Ryuka's words, finding him a humorous novice. Kenneth asks why they have been moved to the west, as that area is supposed to be under Jack's command. Jack responds that they were moved because monster activity has significantly increased in the western region, leading to a call for reinforcements and forces to support the knights there. Ryuka responds, realizing this is why so many knights are with them in the train carriage, and that most are beginners like himself and support teams. Ryuka sarcastically wonders why Kenneth is with them in the support forces, considering he is supposed to be the deputy of the 3rd Sector Knights. Ryuka mocks Kenneth, suggesting he was demoted, which angers Kenneth, who insists that Ryuka's words are untrue, and that he came with the support forces at the request of his commander, Viron, who asked him to ensure Ryuka's safety. Jack laughs at the squabbling between Ryuka and Kenneth. Then Ryuka tells Jack that there's something on his mind since the day he was officially appointed as a knight, and he recalls that Jack had promised him he would remain a listener. Is this acceptable as a promise? Jack replies that Ryuka's question is strange, but responds that his thinking is naive, because if Ryuka were to make a promise like Jack's, it wouldn't be acceptable. The value of a promise is determined by the nature, character, and life of each knight. For Jack, his promise is very strong, and a novice like Ryuka, who has never known love, wouldn't understand the value of his promise. He adds that this is related to the value of sacrifice in each knight's vow, giving an example of a knight who promised never to eat again. The difficulty of that vow isn't just that food is a basic necessity of life, but surely the food has a much deeper meaning for her. Therefore, her vow of not eating was accepted, and Ryuka understands Jack's explanation. However, he returns to the question of their commander, Arthur, whose vow is to renounce her gender. Jack replies that Arthur is a true princess, and that the leader of the Knights organization has always come from a royal family. The previous head of the organization was her brother, and Arthur succeeded him, becoming the leader and renouncing her life as a princess since birth, which is a significant sacrifice for Captain Arthur. Ryuka understands that this is why Captain Arthur wields great power due to her immense sacrifice. Kenneth then punches Ryuka, explaining that a knight's vow and its rectification are tied to the heart and life of each knight, so he shouldn't interfere with the vow and sacrifice of another knight. If he is worthy of knowing, the knights will share their vows with him. Kenneth and Ryuka fight in a humorous manner. One of the train's hosts enters the carriage, welcoming the knights and thanking them for joining them on the train. He introduces himself as Doja and will be their host during the journey. One of the other hosts, surprised, comments that there are no other train hosts with that name. Suddenly, Jack grabs Ryuka and Kenneth, pulling them away from their table as an attack comes from beneath the floor of the train, hitting the support knights in their carriage. This surprise attack was orchestrated by Doja. Ryuka is shocked by the number of knights killed in this treacherous attack, and sees one of the beginner knights injured in the arm. He tries to get closer to help and check on him, only to be startled to find that the knight has transformed into a monster. Kenneth warns him, albeit late, to stay away, but the monster attacks Ryuka, severing his arm. Ryuka screams in pain, shocking Jack and Kenneth with what is happening. Doja then introduces himself, claiming to serve Tempest, the king of sorcerers, and everyone who stands against King Tempest will be executed. After Ryuka's arm is severed, amidst Jack and Kenneth's shock, Kenneth notices that the strange power that transformed the injured knights into monsters strongly resembles the power that formed the horde he faced in the forest with Viran and Ryuka. He realizes that his commander Viran's suspicions are correct. This is the work of the legendary sorcerer. The work of the legendary sorcerer. While Ryuka is in severe pain from his severed arm, another monster tries to attack him, but Kenneth uses his powers and weapon to eliminate the monster. He then fires a powerful shot from his weapon at Doja, hitting him in the face and knocking him down. Jack then uses his magical powers to heal wounds, summoning a fairy capable of healing injuries and entrusting her with the task of treating Ryuka. The fairy flies off to retrieve Ryuka's severed arm, returns to him, reattaches it, and heals him. Ryuka is amazed by her incredible ability to heal wounds. Everyone is taken aback by Doja, who, struck by Kenneth, is now on the ground, as he claps and expresses admiration for Jack and the fairy's ability to heal Ryuka's severed arm. He acknowledges that what is said about the knight's amazing capabilities is true, and although they are human, the organization's knights possess extraordinary powers and skills. Doja rises, his head injured from Kenneth's blow, but he heals himself as well. He boasts that despite the knight's powers, they will fall at the hands of their comrades who have turned into monsters, mocking that it's truly a tragedy. The monsters begin to attack Ryuka, Kenneth, and Jack with powerful and rapid strikes. Due to their transformation into demons, their physical abilities have drastically increased. The three knights fight against the monsters, while Doja mocks them, stating they are in real trouble because if they cannot defeat his demons, they will go on to kill civilians in the other train carriages. While one of the demons tries to attack Ryuka, he attempts to reason with it, trying to bring it back to consciousness, saying he is a knight of the organization, and his role is to protect people, not attack them, but it's to no avail. Jack stabs the demon in the head with a knife, explaining to Ryuka that once a person transforms into a demon, they cannot return to their former nature. Jack reminds Ryuka that the organization's role is to protect people, and that he should have learned this during his training and his test to become a Flame Guardian. To fulfill his mission, he must sometimes be ready to sacrifice his comrades, and if he cannot do that, he must leave the organization immediately. Kenneth asks Ryoka to take care of the demons along with Jack, while his mission is to prevent the demons from reaching the civilians and protect them from any danger. Ryoka moves forward and takes the terrified hostess from the surrounding monsters, escorting her to the next carriage in the train, where the civilians are traveling. He exits the carriage and loudly shouts that everyone must flee immediately due to the presence of demons in the next carriage, urging them to move to the last carriages of the train to stay away from danger. People are shocked by Ryoka's warning and wonder if what he says is true, but Ryoka insists they hurry to escape to save their lives, causing the civilians to panic and flee from the carriage. He comes across a woman with 4 children who are frantic and crying, unsure of how to protect her little ones. The mother urges them to run, but suddenly one of the demons enters the carriage, and she screams in fear along with her kids. Ryoka awakens his powers, conjuring his blazing fiery sword to defend the mother and her children, recalling the knight's mission to protect the people. He strikes the monster with his flaming sword, defeating it, and then his powers explode as he undergoes a stunning transformation. He separates the carriage filled with demons from the rest of the train to eliminate the threat to the civilians. Ryoka then jumps from the civilian carriage to the one with Jack and Kenneth, receiving praise from Captain Jack for his actions, while Doja looks at Ryoka with a smirk, a challenge evident in his gaze as power ignites in Ryoka's eyes. After Ryoka has cut off the civilian carriage from the train and jumped into the battle carriage, he states that he has secured the civilians by removing them from the conflict. Doja is intrigued by Ryoka's appearance and strength, noting that according to his information, only the leaders of the Knight organization possess such high combat abilities. Ryoka, filled with anger, tells him to shut up, describing him as a worthless piece of trash and declaring that he will kill him. Doja sarcastically responds that he has prepared a special welcome for the Knights to enjoy their journey, but it seems that his preparations weren't sufficient, provoking Ryoka. Ryoka begins to launch an attack on Doja, but Jack stops him from acting impulsively to avoid risking his life. He advises him to be cautious, pointing out that the remains of the Knights transformed into demons are stirring and gathering to form a demonic entity, and they must be careful of what is coming. A series of attacks directed at the Knights begins from the remains of the demons. Jack proposes a contest between him, Kenneth, and Ryoka. Whoever can navigate through the forthcoming attacks to reach Doja will earn the honor of beheading him. The 3 knights prepare to attack to reach Doja and defeat him, while Doja mocks them, claiming that he is scared, and if he doesn't use his usual tricks, he might really face death. Doja directs the remains of the knights to attack them, but the knights resist the assaults with full force. One of the transformed limbs tries to restrain Ryoka's arm, but he quickly frees himself with his massive fiery power. Doja realizes that he cannot win this battle through futile direct combat and must resort to cunning. He is surprised by a powerful attack from Jack, who reaches him and attempts to stab Doja in the neck with his knife. However, Doja suddenly disappears and escapes to the next carriage, which is the train's control room. Jack follows him and inspects the room, confident that Doja must be hiding because it's impossible for him to have escaped so quickly, and that he is lurking somewhere. While searching for Doja, Jack discovers bloodstains and hears the groans of an injured civilian lying on the ground, bleeding from his wounds. He wonders if this is the real train captain and bends down beside him to hold him, trying to treat his wounds with his own powers, summoning the fairy that heals injuries. To his shock, a stake pierces his shoulder, inflicting severe damage. Jack realizes that the injured captain is merely a trap set by Doja. The injured man escapes from Jack's grasp, transforming into something else, and sarcastically stating that the knights of the organization are nothing but fools, predictable in their behavior. He learned that when they see one of their own injured, they rush to help, and his older brother taught him that. The strange figure transforms into another demon named Dolka, and Doja appears, with this demon Dolka climbing onto his shoulder, revealing that this demon is Doja's brother. Jack vows to kill them both, but Dolka severely injures him with a stake piercing his body, asking Doja if he should throw Jack out the window while he is hurt. Doja responds that he should do that and praises his little brother for his performance in taking down Jack. Jack, while injured, asks about the real train captain, to which Dolka replies that they threw him out of the train window. Kenneth rushes in to save Jack, grabbing him while Dolka mocks Kenneth, asking his opinion on their strategy and how it succeeded in eliminating one of the Knights' leaders. Suddenly, Doja and Dolka are surprised by an attack from a flaming sword that cuts off their arms, causing Dolka to suffer greatly from his injury. Ryoka appears, with his power blazing and filled with rage, declaring that even though he is a rookie knight, he will be the one to kill them. Kenneth examines Jack's wound and discovers it is a deep, dangerous injury. He asks the healing fairy to treat Jack's wound, and she begins to work on it. However, since Jack is unconscious, the treatment will take time. Doja and Dolka regenerate their arms, returning them to their original state, and Doja responds to Ryoka's threat about killing him, insisting that he is too cocky for being human. Doja and Dolka agree that to confront the knights Kenneth and Ryoka, it's best to fight outside. They indeed move to the top of the train, waiting for the knights to showcase their true powers without reservation. Ryoka tells Kenneth that someone must stay with Jack in case another trap is set, and Jack, the injured one, could be taken hostage. Kenneth responds that he will take care of treating and protecting Jack, relying on Ryoka to deal with Doja and Dolka. Ryoka leaps onto the train's roof to face Doja and Dolka, finding Doja waiting for him with a look of disdain at Ryoka coming alone to fight. Doja mocks Kenneth for not coming to assist Ryoka in the battle. Ryoka asks Dolka what Doja and the Sorcerer Emperor's objective is, and what they want from all this. Doja responds that he has already told him that his role and task are to eliminate the knights and kill them, stating that by the Sorcerer Emperor's orders, he won't allow them to reach the western area alive. Ryoka then asks what the Sorcerer Emperor's intention is in the west, what he wants to do in that area. Doja replies mockingly that Ryoka does not need to know this information, as he will die here. The train enters a dark tunnel, and numerous glowing eyes emerge from the darkness, revealing bats transformed into monsters by Doja. Those bats attack Ryoka, trying to hit him, but he evades them. However, one of them manages to injure him, and Ryoka continues dodging their attacks, defeating them with his flaming sword. Yet he realizes that they keep coming, attacking him in overwhelming numbers. Ryoka thinks that to end them, he must find the one controlling them and defeat him. One bat attacks Ryoka from behind, almost hitting him, but that bat is shot down by Kenneth's weapon, who appears to support him in the fight. Ryoka questions Kenneth's presence, but Kenneth replies that he couldn't face them alone. The two knights begin to eliminate the monsters together, covering each other's backs. Doja then begins to launch a fierce assault to eradicate Ryoka and Kenneth, with deadly spikes erupting from his feet aimed at Ryoka to kill him. But Ryoka realizes Doja's trap and his brother Dolka's scheme. He grabs Kenneth's head, positioning it against Doja's attack, which slices through Kenneth's body, revealing that the Kenneth who assisted Ryoka was actually Dolka. This was the brothers' scheme to eliminate Ryoka. However, Ryoka exposes their trick and makes Doja kill his brother Dolka himself. Doja questions how Ryoka discovered the truth that Kenneth was a fake. Ryoka responds that, as he said, knights have a habit of placing complete trust in their comrades. They had agreed that Kenneth would take care of protecting and treating Jack, while Ryoka focused on fighting Doja and Dolka. Kenneth had told Ryoka to rely on him to overcome the brothers. Ryoka then grabs Dolka's head and crushes it into small pieces, launching a devastating attack on Doja. He seizes Doja's head and shatters it and his body, mocking him by asking how it feels to be killed by a rookie knight. Doja disintegrates into pieces, his head crushed and body torn apart. The battle concludes with the brothers killed by Ryoka, who proudly comments that he was unable to behead him, according to the contest set by Jack, but believes he will be forgiven for shattering their enemy Doja's head. After defeating Doja, Ryoka finishes his transformation and returns to his natural form. However, he notices someone in the distance standing on a train track, holding a hammer. He informs Kenneth, who has just finished treating Jack, although Jack hasn't regained consciousness yet. Kenneth recognizes the person as Bright, the leader of the 6th branch. Bright uses her hammer to create an icy barrier to stop the train. Then she goes to see what happened with the knights and heads toward the unconscious Jack, slapping him awake. He is surprised by her presence, and she asks him for a report on what transpired during their journey as soon as he wakes up. Jack, caught off guard by her arrival, asks her why she is there. Jack explains what happened during their journey and their confrontation with Doja and his brother. Kenneth and Ryoka observe them, whispering that she is different from what they imagined. Afterward, Bright summarizes what happened to them. The support forces from the knights turned into demons and were all killed, leaving only the 3 of them. She mentions their confrontation with Doja and the lady serving the legendary sorcerer she spoke of. Bright immediately gives instructions to her knight team to inform the organization's headquarters that the support forces have been killed and requests emergency backup. She also tells them to go to the civilian train and ensure their safety, asking the 3 knights to accompany her, as she has information about the legendary sorcerer and where he might be headed, and requests their help in catching up to him. Ryoka asks Kenneth about the legendary sorcerer, noting that he was the one they encountered previously in the forest, and wonders if he is really that well known. Kenneth replies that he isn't an expert on such information, but explains that the sorcerer is a legendary figure from long ago, who used his magic to open a gate in the sky, summoning the Demon King, who turned humans into demons with a constant goal of spreading chaos. The four knights set off toward the sealed temple in the desert, as the information they received and what happened with the knights on the train suggest that the sorcerer is planning something bad and meddling with the demon temple sealed in the desert. Ryuka questions whether the demon temple is merely a myth, to which Kenneth responds that a long time ago, when the knights faced the summoned Demon King who invaded the world, they defeated him and tore his body apart. Those pieces turned into complete monsters with high intelligence, leading to a great disaster. One of those monsters controlled the weather, sending thousands of lightning strikes at once. Another burned cities down to the point of melting rocks, and one caused floods that drowned everything, while another devastated the land. The knights of that time could only fight and defeat those monsters, building temples in the north, south, east, and west to seal each of those monsters away to end the danger. Despite being sealed, those monsters still spread their demonic energy, known as miasma, which spreads chaos and turns any creatures it touches into demons. Bright remarks that this desert was once Greenland, but the sealed demon in the temple, who controls water, sucked all the water from the land, turning it into a desert. They've received information that they encountered someone capable of creating monsters, the one they met in the forest earlier, and the organization believes this person is the legendary sorcerer who summoned the Demon King to the earth. They must act upon this lead, as the alliance between the legendary sorcerer and the demons sealed in the temples would be extremely dangerous, posing a significant threat to the organization and potentially leading to another disaster in the world. Ryuka asks if the sorcerer is ahead of them at the museum, and Bright responds that they will arrive shortly and that the museum must be close by. Suddenly, a red moon appears in the sky, signaling something dangerous, reminding Ryuka of that moon during his previous encounter with the sorcerer in the forest. He hears a voice in his head saying that he longs for the past. Suddenly, the vehicle they were riding in gets flipped as they travel through the desert, and they find the temple they are searching for. Ryuka lands on its surface, where a strange person appears, happily celebrating their meeting with Ryuka. He mentions that the last time they met, it was through a puppet, but this time, he meets him in person. Ryuka recognizes him as the legendary sorcerer, Tempest.